Ready? Start. That is a tremendous responsibility. Freedom brings responsibility. Of course, there is no such thing as freedom without responsibility. Irresponsibility itself means lack of freedom. Therefore, we have to be conscious of this tremendous burden of responsibility which freedom has brought, the discipline of freedom and the organized way of working freedom. But there is something even more than that, the freedom that has come to India by virtue of many things inevitably leads India to play an important part in world affairs. It is not a question of our choosing this or that, it is an inevitable consequence of what India is and what a free India must be. And because we have to play that inevitable part in world affairs, we have another and greater responsibility. Sometimes, with all my hope and optimism and confidence in my nation, I rather quack at the great responsibilities that are being thrust upon us and which are we cannot escape if we get tied up in our narrow controversies. We may forget this. Whether we forget it or not, that responsibility is there. If we forget it, we fail in that measure. Therefore, I would beg of this House to consider these great responsibilities that have been thrust upon India and on us in this House because we represent India in this as in many other spheres and to work together in the framing of the Constitution, always keeping that in view, for the eyes of the world are upon us and the hopes and aspirations of a great part of the world are also upon us. We dare not to belittle. If we do so, we do an ill service to our country and to the hopes and aspirations of other countries that surround us. It is in this way that I would like the House to consider this Constitution, first of all, to keep the objectives resolution before us and to see how far we are going to act upon it, how far we are going to build up, as we said in the resolution, an independent, sovereign republic where in all power and authority of the sovereign, independent India, its constituents, parts, and organs of government are derived from the people and wherein shall be guaranteed and secured to all the people of India justice, social, economic, and political equality of status, of opportunity, and before the law, freedom of thought, expression, belief, and worship. The House will remember that when I brought the motion of the objectives resolution before this House, I referred to the fact that we were asking for, or rather, we were laying down that our Constitution should be framed for an independent, sovereign republic. I stated at that time, and I have stated subsequently, that this business of our being a republic is entirely a matter for us to determine. Of course, it has little or nothing to do with what relations we should have with other countries, notably the United Kingdom or the Commonwealth that used to be called the British Commonwealth of Nations. That was a question which had to be determined again by this House and by no one else, independently of what our Constitution was going to be. I want to inform the House that in recent weeks, when I was in the United Kingdom, this subject and allied subjects came up for private discussion. There was no public discussion or decision because the Commonwealth Conference which I attended did not consider it at all in its sessions. Inevitably, these were private discussions because it is a matter of high moment not only for us but also for other countries as to what, if any, relation we should have, what context, what links we should bear with these other countries. Invariably, the first thing that I had to say in all these discussions was that I could not, as an individual, even though I had been honored with the high office of Prime Ministership, I could not in any way or in any sense commit the country nor even the government which I had the honor to represent. This was essentially a matter which the Constituent Assembly of India alone could decide. I made that perfectly clear. Having made that clear, I further drew their attention to the objectives resolution of the Constituent Assembly. I said it was, of course, open to the Constituent Assembly to vary that resolution as it could vary everything else because it was sovereign in this and other matters. That was the located, but to all the states in the region, 15% of the electricity is kept with the center to release to the state in the region whichever is in sufferance. This is the formula that has been evolved. If this formula has got to be changed for those states which are deficit states, then the states would not take up the projects which they ought to. And perhaps it would not be exaggeration for me to reassert that the states would become parasites over the central projects. It is precisely because of this reason that we have evolved this formula. In fact, I am facing one more difficulty which I must share with the House. I am having quite a lot of difficulty in the transmission of power that has to be evacuated from the central power projects. The Rajya Dhiraksha committee have gone on record to say that the 220 kV lines, which are crucial for the purpose of evacuation of power, should be taken over by the center. The management of those transmission lines, and in fact, we are going ahead with setting up the 400 kV transmission lines at various places. Now, what had been happening is that the states which are subjected to a power shortage had certainly been trying to say, yet you must control the transmission lines. But I am finding that quite a large number of states are not prepared to agree to allow the center to have the control of the 220 kV transmission lines. In fact, some time back, I had taken a meeting of all the power ministers in the northern zone and none agreed for the central control. I had to set up a committee of the chairman of electricity boards to go into it and find a way out for the purpose of evacuation of power from the thermal power stations controlled by the center. I have taken this step so that the power could be evacuated without difficulty. Otherwise, if the transmission lines have also to be developed, the cost will be equal to the setting up of the thermal power station. Now, according to a rough calculation, the creation of 1 MW capacity costs about rupees 1 crore. That means that for setting up the super thermal power stations which have been set up at different places with a capacity of 2100 MW, we would have had to spend rupees 2100 crores, and an equal amount would have to be spent for the purpose of the transmission lines, which would make things very difficult because of the resource constraints. I thought I should explain this so that the position becomes a little clear. Sir, one of the members, direction which the Constituent Assembly had given itself and to its Constitution Drafting Committee, as long as it remained as it was, the Constitution would be in terms of the objectives revolution. Having made that clear, sir, I said that it had often been said on our behalf that we desired to be associated in friendly relationship with other countries, with the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. That is all I wish to say about the matter, because in the course of the session this matter will come up. Stop.